Walt Whitman is effectively the first poet that made me realize that I actually like poetry. Because I will admit, a large majority of poetry out there I don't like. But in reading Walt Whitman's poetry, it can bring me to tears. That's powerful. He was a prolific poet, as you can see by this book, Leaves of Grass. And I read it and I highlight it. And here's a highlighted section. I'll read a part of it, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. But still, nonetheless, long. All truths wait in all things. They neither hasten their own delivery nor resist it. They do not need the obstetric forceps of the surgeon. The insignificant is as big to me as any. Logic and sermons never convince. The damp of the night drives deeper into my soul. A minute and a drop of me settle my brain. I believe the soggy clods shall become lovers and lamps. I compend of compends is the meat of a man or woman, and a summit and flower there is a feeling they have for each other. And they are to branch boundlessly out of that lesson until it becomes omnific, and until one and all shall delight us, and we them. I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars, and the pismire is equally perfect, and a grain of sand, and the egg of the wren, and the tree toad is the chef d'oeuvre for the highest, and the running blackberry would adorn the parlors of heaven, and the narrowest hinge in my hand puts to scorn all machinery, and the cow crunching with depressed head surpasses any statue, and a mouse is miracle enough to stagger a sextillion of infidels. I find I incorporate gneiss, coal, long-threaded moss, fruits, grains, esculent roots, and I am stuccoed with quadrupeds and birds all over, and have distanced what is behind me for good reasons, but call anything back again when I desire it. In vain the speeding or shyness. In vain the plutonic rocks send their old heat against my approach. In vain the mastodon retreats beneath its own powdered bones. In vain objects stand leagues off and assume manifold shapes. In vain the ocean settling in hollows and the great monsters lying low. In vain the buzzard houses herself with the sky. In vain the snake slides through the creepers and logs. In vain the elk takes to the inner passes of the woods. In vain the razor-billed auk sails far north of Labrador. I follow quickly. I ascend to the nest in the fissure of the cliff. I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long, scaling mountains, pulling myself cautiously up, holding on by low-scragged limbs, walking the path worn in the grass and beat through the leaves of the brush, where the quail is whistling betwixt the woods and the wheat lot, where the bat flies in the 7th-month eve, where the great gold bug drops through the dark, where the brook puts out of the roots of the old tree and flows through the meadow, where cattle stand and shake away flies with the tremulous shuddering of their hides, where the cheesecloth hangs in the kitchen, where andirons straddle the hearth slab, where cobwebs fall in festoons from the rafters, where trip hammers crash, where the press is whistling its cylinders, wherever the human heart beats with terrible throes under its ribs, where the pear-shaped balloon is floating adrift, where the life car is drawn on the slip noose, where the heat hatches pale green eggs in the dented sand, where the she-whale swims with her calf and never forsakes it, where the steamship trails hindways its long pennant of smoke, where the fin of the shark cuts like a black chip out of the water, where the half-burned brig is riding on unknown currents, where shells grow to her slimy deck, where the dead are corrupting below, where the dense starred flag is home at the head of the regiments, approaching Manhattan up by the long-stretched island, under Niagara the cataract falling like a veil over my countenance. Upon a doorstep, upon the horse block of hard wood outside, upon the race course, or enjoying picnics, or jigs, or a good game of baseball, at he festivals with blackguard gibs, ironical in license, bull dancers drinking laughter, at the cider mill tasting the sweets of the brown mash, sucking the juice through a straw, at apple peelings wanting kisses for all the red fruit I find, at musters, beach parties, friendly bees, huskings, house raisings, where the mockingbird sounds his delicious gurgles, cackles, screams, and weeps, where the hayrick stands in the barnyard, where the dry stalks are scattered, where the brood cow waits in the hovel, where the bull advances to do his masculine work, where the stud to the mare, where the cock is treading the head, where the heifers browse, where the geese nip their food with short jerks, where sundown shadows lengthen over the limitless and lonesome prairie, where herds of buffalo make a crawling spread over the square miles far and near, where the hummingbird shimmers, where the neck of the long-lived swan is curving and winding, where the laughing gull scoops by the shore where she laughs her near-human laugh, where beehives range on a gray bench in the garden half hid by the high weeds, where band-necked partridges roost in a ring on the ground with their heads out, where burial coaches enter the arched gates of a cemetery, where winter wolves bark amid wastes of snow and icicled trees, where the yellow-crowned heron comes to the edge of the marsh at night and feeds upon small crabs, where the splash of swimmers and divers cools the warm noon, where the katydid works her chromatic reed on the walnut tree over the well, through patches of citrons and cucumbers with silver-wired leaves, through the salt lick or orange glade or under the conical firs, through the gymnasium, through the curtained saloon, through the office or public hall, pleased with the native and pleased with the foreign, pleased with the new and old, pleased with the homely woman as well as the handsome, pleased with the Quakeress as she puts off her bonnet and talks melodiously, pleased with the tune of the choir of the whitewashed church, pleased with the earnest words of the sweating Methodist preacher impressed seriously at the camp meeting. Looking in at the shop windows of Broadway the whole forenoon, flatting the flesh of my nose on the thick plate glass, wandering the same afternoon with my face turned up to the clouds, or down a lane, or along the beach, my right and left arms round the sides of two friends, and I in the middle, coming home with the silent and dark-cheeked bush boy, far from the settlements studying the print of animals' feet or the moccasined print, by the cot in the hospital reaching lemonade to a feverish patient, nigh the coffined corpse when all is still examining with a candle, voyaging to every port is dicker and adventure, hurrying with the modern crowd as eager and fickle as any, hot toward one I hate, ready in my madness to knife him, solitary at midnight in my backyard, my thoughts gone from me a long while, walking the old hills of Judah with the beautiful gentle God by my side, speeding through space, speeding through heaven and the stars, speeding amid the 7 satellites and the broad ring and the diameter of 80,000 miles, speeding with tailed meteors throwing fireballs like the rest, carrying the crescent child that carries its own full mother in its belly, storming, enjoying, planning, loving, cautioning, backing and filling, appearing and disappearing. I tread day and night such roads. I visit the orchards of spheres, and I look at the product, and look at quintillions ripened, and look at quintillions green. I fly those flights of a fluid and swallowing soul. My course runs below the soundings of plummets. I help myself to material and immaterial. No guard can shut me off, no law prevent me. I anchor my ship for a little while only. My messengers continually cruise away and bring their returns to me. I go hunting polar furs and the seal, leaping chasms with a pike-pointed staff, clinging to topples of brittle and blue. I ascend to the foretruck. I take my place late at night in the crow's nest. We sail the Arctic Sea. It is plenty light enough. Through the clear atmosphere I stretch around on the wonderful beauty. The enormous masses of ice pass me, and I pass them. The scenery is plain in all directions. The white-topped mountains show in the distance. I fling out my fancies toward them. We are approaching some great battlefield in which we are all soon to be engaged. We pass the colossal outposts of the encampment. We pass with still feet and caution. Or are we entering by the suburbs some vast and ruined city? The blocks and fallen architecture more than all the living cities of the globe. I am a free companion. I bivouac by invading watchfires. I turn the bridegroom out of bed, and I stay with the bride myself. I tighten her all night in my thighs and lips. My voice is the wife's voice, the screech by the rail of the stairs. They fetch my man's body by dripping and drowned. I understand the large hearts of heroes, the courage of present times and all times. How the skipper saw the crowded and rudderless wreck of the steamship, the death chasing it up and down the storm. How he knuckled tight and gave not back an inch, and was faithful of days and faithful of nights, and chalked in large letters on the board, "Be of good cheer, we will not desert you." How he followed with them and tacked with them 3 days, would not give it up. How he saved the drifting company at last. How the lank, long-gowned women looked when boated from the side of their prepared graves. How the silent old-faced infants, and the lifted sick, and the sharp-lipped unshaven men. All this I swallow. It tastes good. I like it well. It becomes mine. I am the man. I suffered. I was there. The disdain and calmness of martyrs. The mother of old, condemned for a witch, burnt with dry wood, her children gazing on. The hounded slave that flags in the race, leans by the fence, blowing, covered with sweat. The twinges that sting like needles in his legs and neck. The murderous buckshot and the bullets. All these I feel or am. I hear and behold God in every object, yet understand God not in the least. Nor do I understand who there can be more wonderful than myself. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God every hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face, in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come for ever and ever. And as to you, death, and you bitter hug of mortality, it is idle to try to alarm me. To his work without flinching, the accoucheur comes. I see the elder hand pressing, receiving, supporting. I recline by the sills of the exquisite flexible doors, and mark the outlet, and mark the relief and escape. And as to you, corpse, I think you are good manure, but that does not offend me. I smell the white roses, sweet-scented and growing. I reach to the leafy lips, I reach to the polished breasts of millions. And as to you, life, I reckon you are the leavings of many deaths. No doubt I have died myself 10,000 times before. I hear you whispering there, O stars of heaven, O suns, O grass of graves, O perpetual transfers and promotions. If you do not say anything, how can I say anything? Of the turbid pool that lies in the autumn forest, of the moon that descends the steeps of the sowing twilight, toss sparkles of day and dust, toss on the black stems that decay in the muck, toss in the moaning gibberish of the dry limbs. I ascend from the moon, I ascend from the night, I perceive that the ghastly glimmer is noonday sunbeams reflected, and debauched to the steady and central flow of offspring great or small. There is that in me, I do not know what it is, but I know it is me. Wrenched and sweaty, calm and cool, then my body becomes. I sleep long. I do not know it. It is without name. It is a word unsaid. It is not in any dictionary, utterance, symbol. Something it swings on more than the earth I swing on. To it the creation is the friend whose embrace awakens me. Perhaps I might tell more. Outlines I plead for my brothers and sisters. Do you see, O my brothers and sisters? It is not chaos or death. It is form, union, plan. It is eternal life. It is happiness. I could go on. But that's a great example of Walt Whitman. And what you can see in Walt Whitman's writings is a love of life, a love of everything. The good, the bad, the big, the small, the grand and the mundane. Walt Whitman reminds us to be in love with everything and with ourselves. To see the divinity and the beauty, the sacredness of everything. From the twitching of a cattle hide to the grass growing in an obscure hill or field, to the raindrops from the kings to slaves. Walt Whitman reminds us of the interconnection between all things, that we are all not that different, that we are all made from the same stuff, from the same essence, that life itself ebbs and flows, comes and goes. It is an acceptance with all things. To me, Walt Whitman reminds me of the Tao Te Ching. That's all for now.